What's going on?
Nothing. Just want to talk some business.
Let's go for a little ride. Take it down! Take it down! Take it down!
The story kicks off with an old man named Norm, who runs a criminal crew. His son-in-law, Bull, is also part of the gang. During a festival, Norm tells Bull that they need to take care of some unfinished business. As soon as the event wraps up, the group heads out to settle a debt. Their destination? A slaughterhouse, where Norm confronts the owner, who has been behind on payments for a while. Instead of working things out, Norm decides to take over the factory. But the owner refuses to sign the papers, despite promising to pay up. Bull, losing patience, steps in and cuts off a few of the man's fingers. That finally convinces him to hand over the factory. On the way home, Bull asks about Gary, the guy responsible for loaning money to the factory owner. No one answers. Later that night, Bull arrives home to find Gary's car in the driveway. Turns out, Gary is having an affair with Bull's wife, Gemma. Caught off guard, Gemma runs to their son Aiden's room, while Bull, heartbroken, says nothing. Despite feeling betrayed, he keeps quiet for Norm's sake and focuses on raising Aiden. A few days later, Norm has a serious talk with Bull. He tells him that since Gemma is now with Gary, Bull has to cut ties with her. Then, he drops a bombshell. Bull is out of the gang. Surprisingly, Bull doesn't react much. He calmly tells Gary and Gemma that he's known about their affair for a while, but kept quiet out of respect for Norm. However, he has one condition. He wants full custody of Aiden. Norm refuses, saying Bull isn't fit to be a father. Furious, Bull storms off. The next day, Bull takes Aiden back home, showing that, despite his rough nature, he loves his son deeply. Later, Marco and Mike, two of Bull's old gang mates, show up. Norm has asked them to bring Bull and Aiden to an amusement park for a final goodbye. Bull is hesitant, but eventually agrees. He and Aiden spend the day enjoying rides before Bull finally meets with Norm. Norm sends Aiden off with Marco and Mike to play a game, giving him and Bull a moment alone. Then, out of nowhere, Norm pulls a gun and forces Bull toward a waiting car, where Gary is standing by. Enraged, Bull insults Gary and calls Gemma a backstabber. That makes Norm snap. He strikes Bull with his gun and throws him into the trunk. The gang takes Bull to an abandoned bus in a secluded area. Suddenly, Gemma arrives, furious that Bull tried to take Aiden away. As things calm down, Norm asks Bull what he would have done if Aiden was taken from him. Without hesitation, Bull says he would destroy everyone responsible. Knowing how ruthless Bull can be, Norm decides to eliminate him for good. The gang drenches the bus in gasoline and knocks Bull out with vodka. They set the vehicle on fire and leave, showing no mercy. As the flames rise, Aiden rushes out of Gemma's car, crying for his father. But she quickly pulls him back inside and drives off. 10 years later, a man waits for a taxi. It's Bull, back from the dead and ready for revenge. His first stop? A former gang member's house. Without hesitation, he kills him and moves on. Next, the story shifts to the home of Gemma's older sister. She wakes up, turns on the lights, and sees her husband tied up. Shock turns to terror when she realizes Bull, whom she thought was long gone, is standing right there. He demands to know where Norm and Gemma are, but she claims they haven't spoken in years. Not convinced, Bull kills both of them. After all, they supplied the bus that Norm used to burn him alive. The following morning, an older Norm visits Gemma and Gary at their new home for breakfast. He delivers the bad news. Gemma's sister and her husband have been murdered. Furious, Gemma accuses Norm, assuming one of his old enemies came for revenge. But Norm insists he has no more rivals and chalks it up to a robbery gone wrong. Meanwhile, Bull keeps hunting down those who betrayed him. This time, he targets Marco, one of the men who helped set him up. Bull approaches Marco's young son, tells him to run home, and inform his dad that he's waiting at the park. The boy obeys, relaying the message. Marco is shaken. He refuses to believe Bull is still alive. He quickly calls Norm, telling him what happened. Norm instructs him to meet the man himself and confirm if it's really Bull. Before heading out, Marco grabs a knife and orders his wife to lock all doors, making sure no one leaves until he gets back. When he arrives at the park, he's stunned to see Bull standing there, alive and well. Marco tries to apologize, saying he only followed orders. Bull isn't interested in excuses. Back at home, Marco's wife grows increasingly worried and calls his phone. But when the call is answered, it's not Marco's voice she hears, it's Bull's. Panicked, she rushes to the park, only to find Marco's lifeless body waiting for her. The following day, Norm and Gary show up at Bull's mother's house. After Marco's shocking death, they're finally convinced that Bull is alive and out for revenge. Norm wastes no time pressing Bull's mom for answers, demanding to know where he is. Despite the fear in her eyes, she stands her ground, claiming she hasn't seen her son in 10 years. Not one to take no for an answer, Norm threatens to kill her if she doesn't spill the truth. Hours later, Bull arrives at his mother's house only to find her lifeless body. The grief hits him hard, but it only fuels his thirst for revenge. His next target? Mike. That afternoon, Mike is picking up his kids from school when he spots Bull sitting in a parked car. The sight of him nearly makes Mike's heart stop. He looks like he's seen a ghost. Everyone knew that Mike, along with Norm and the others, played a role in Bull's attempted murder. Before Mike can react, Bull makes it clear, either get in the car or die. During the drive, Mike pleads for his life, saying he never wanted things to end up this way. He begs for mercy, especially for his kids. Bull, however, has only one thing on his mind, finding Gemma. When Mike admits he hasn't seen her in 3 years, Bull isn't buying it. He gives Mike a deal, set up a meeting with Gary at the fun fair, and he and his kids walk away unharmed. At the amusement park, Mike keeps his word and contacts Gary, who is nearby. Bull decides to let Mike and his children go. Now it's Gary's turn. When Gary sees Bull approaching with a knife in hand, fear washes over him. Bull forces him to play an arcade game while questioning him about Gemma and Norm's whereabouts. Gary, desperate to save himself, lies and says he hasn't seen Gemma in years. Bull, seeing right through the deception, fatally wounds him. Still unsure of where Gemma and Norm are, Bull searches for another lead. He heads to a nightclub and spots a drug runner. Remembering Gemma's drug addiction, he figures this guy might know something. Bull grabs the courier and forces him to take him to a dealer, hoping the dealer will have information. Terrified, the courier gives in and leads Bull to the city's top narcotics dealer. Bull doesn't waste time. He calmly asks the dealer if Gemma is one of his customers. The dealer says he'll give him the information for a price. Bull pretends to agree, but then suddenly severs the man's hand, leaving him in unbearable pain. Knowing he won't get out of this alive otherwise, the dealer finally gives in. He promises to take Bull to Gemma's place if Bull lets him live. Bull eventually arrives at Gemma's home. When he steps inside, he finds her passed out. His loud voice wakes her, and the moment she sees him, she's filled with terror. She immediately starts apologizing, begging for forgiveness. But Bull doesn't care about her excuses. He orders her to call Norm. Before long, Norm arrives, gun in hand. He walks in cautiously, unaware that Bull is waiting, armed with a knife. In a flash, Bull takes him down. With Norm weakened, Bull grabs a pillow and suffocates him, demanding to know where Aiden is. Gemma, horrified, pleads for him to stop, but Bull is relentless. Desperate, she finally confesses that she abandoned Aiden years ago, and now he's living under a bridge in the city center. With nothing left to say, Bull ends her life. That night, Bull finds Aiden under the bridge and takes him away. Determined to give him a better life, he decides to bring him to a church for safekeeping. The next morning, the church's caretaker, Cheryl, arrives to open the doors. She's Bull's former mother-in-law and had divorced Norm long before Aiden was born. When she steps inside, she is shocked to find Aiden lying unconscious on the floor. But the real horror hits when she looks up and sees Bull standing there. Her face turns pale. She thought he was dead. Cheryl demands to know why he's here. Bull, with an eerie calmness, tells her he isn't seeking forgiveness for himself, but for Aiden. Then, as she stares into his pitch-black eyes, the horrifying truth dawns on her. Bull didn't survive that fire 10 years ago. Somehow, he came back from the dead to get his revenge and protect his son. With his mission complete, he entrusts Aiden's future to Cheryl before disappearing for good. Thanks for watching. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.